And welcome back. We continue our discussion with Dr. Sizo Nkala, Research Fellow at the University of Johannesburg Center for Africa-China Studies, continuing to look at AGOA 2023 Summit. And we were just touching on AGOA as a preferential trade agreement and the distinct differences in terms of what benefits are offered. Is it that much more different when you have a bilateral trade agreement in place? Because what I wanted to find out is it creating sustainable structural changes?
Yeah, I think there are considerable benefits because if it's under a bilateral trade agreement, or trade procedure, it's a bit it would be a bit tough for African countries to access U.S. markets because it means they'll be subject to the tariff regimes of the U.S. and then African economies being less competitive. It would be really difficult for them to access the U.S. market. So I think AGOA opens up the U.S. economy, the U.S. market to African exporters, and then they are able to export considerably more than what they will be able to under a bilateral trade arrangement.
And I ask this particularly in light of what one would assume is a goodwill ethos behind it when the discussions underway are trying to ensure that at the same time, while you have an extension for continuity's sake, but you also approach it with the spirit of change, of reform. And I want to look at duty-free access in the African garment market through AGOA. How different is it from the World Trade Organization's multi-fiber agreement, for instance? What has it been able to improve on?
Well, I think one thing it has been able to change or maybe improve is stimulate investment in the African textile or garment sector. Because the U.S. market is lucrative, it's attractive, and the tariffs are being removed. It makes African products or textiles more competitive compared to other economies that are also exporting to the U.S. So I think it stimulates investment, stimulates production in Africa and in competitiveness as well of African exports.
So a report to the US Congress earlier this year showed that AGOA's benefits are not necessarily widespread throughout all the countries and sectors. So in your view, what are the major weaknesses?
Well, the major weaknesses, I think, lie on African countries' part. Firstly, most African countries are least developed countries, LDCs. They don't have infrastructure. They don't have reliable energy supplies. It makes their products more expensive and less competitive. So firstly, and then secondly, I think this is an issue that has been mentioned: information and awareness of the AGOA trade arrangement. Businesses are not aware, firms are not aware, and of how they can utilize the AGOA trade arrangements. So there needs to be, I think, an awareness or an education campaign to make businesses more aware. And then governments, African governments need to, I think they need to come up with a strategy to maximize utilization of the AGOA arrangement or trade regime.
So if we look at some of the areas of less success, AGOA's influence in reducing poverty for workers in sectors including cotton farming, cocoa production and chemicals due to lack of development of higher value added downstream product production. How can that be tackled at this meeting?
Well, I think what's needed is investment. That's how African countries can benefit even more from AGOA. Without investment, they cannot utilize the AGOA trade arrangement or the preferential arrangements under the AGOA. Even if the businesses are aware of it, even if they educate the business and come up with the best strategies on utilization, if there is no investment in Africa's productive capacity, then they won't benefit more. So what should be included maybe would be investment in infrastructure, in energy, in transport, to make African products or exports more competitive, so as to take advantage of AGOA.
I mean, just non-petroleum products, for instance, I think it's just over 3/4 of duty-free exports come from just a few countries: South Africa, Kenya, Lesotho, Madagascar, and Ethiopia. That surely needs to be a net that is widened as well.
Yeah, I think we have to deconcentrate the use of AGOA from these few countries. More countries need to come in, and it doesn't help that one third of countries in sub-Saharan Africa are banned from AGOA. So you now have 17 countries that have already been banned. Only 33 countries are now eligible to participate in AGOA. So it reduces the number of countries further that can benefit from this trade arrangement. But then I think we have to go back again to improving the economies or the ease of doing business in African countries, because there's no production taking place in most of these African countries to export and take advantage of AGOA. Their manufacturing sectors are negligible, most of them. So I think manufacturing capacity must be built in African countries, so they can produce to export.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sizo Nkala, who is a research fellow at the University of Johannesburg Center for Africa-China Studies.